You raise a great point. The estate of Jeffrey Epstein has a voluminous amount of information that they have not released before.
Okay, so that's great. So wouldn't it be great if FBI subpoenaed the estate of Jeffrey Epstein for all that information?
Chosen. Shit. Hey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Attorney Session podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Marcus Session. So what I like to do is I like to unwrap a few current events that are going on. I like to kind of break things down a little bit, and if I can provide some insight, if I could provide some points of view that'll help you viewers to understand what's going on a little better, I like to do that. So we're talking about specifically the committee hearing where Representative Ted Lieu was questioning Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, which I have no clue why he's the director of the FBI, but I also have no clue why many of Donald Trump's cabinet members are in their position, but that's above my pay grade, I suppose.
Have you looked at all the photos in Epstein files?
I have looked at all the information that the investigators who investigated this case have provided to run out credible leads.
And in the Epstein file, was there that creepy birthday message that Donald Trump had written to Epstein?
No, that's what I was trying to tell you. You raise a great point. The estate of Jeffrey Epstein has a voluminous amount of information that they have not released before.
Okay, so that's great. So wouldn't it be great if FBI subpoenaed the estate of Jeffrey Epstein for all that information?
The estate is under no obligation to provide that material, even pursuant to a subpoena. That's a great point.
Yeah, that's just false.
Okay.
That's just false. You're the frickin' FBI. You can subpoena the information from the estate, and you better do that.
So Patel said the estate of Jeffrey Epstein is under no obligation to provide the material, the files that they have access to, even pursuant to a search warrant. And that is far from the truth. So here's the deal. Of course, I've been building my notes on this issue, and I want to share those with you, okay? So in the U.S., the FBI, through federal prosecutors and of course, a grand jury indictment, can subpoena an estate's records, and the estate generally must comply, subject to normal legal obligations, of course. How it works, the FBI itself doesn't issue the subpoenas on its own in criminal cases. But instead, a federal grand jury subpoena is usually issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office and their prosecutors. And we, of course, know who the U.S. Attorney is. It's Pam Bondi. So if you think she's actually going to be issuing that subpoena anytime soon, then you got it all wrong. She's not going to do that. And so the subpoena can be directed to the estate's legal representative or to any entity holding the records, like a law firm, an accountant, a bank, cloud provider. Any of those entities can be subpoenaed as long as they're the ones that are holding access to those records. Does the estate of Jeffrey Epstein have to comply with the subpoena? The answer is generally yes. The executor or the personal representative of the estate who has the authority over the state property must respond to a lawful process. But comply doesn't mean just hand the items over and hand everything over, no questions asked. If they were subpoenaed and they were smart, they would try to, of course, limit the scope of what can be subpoenaed, limit the scope of what the prosecutors needed to see. They could object to certain things such as insufficient particularity, the subpoena being overbroad or unduly burdensome if they don't have access to records, or having to get access to those records would be unduly burdensome, or if much of the information is irrelevant, right? And of course, the withholding of privileged material. If any of that material is privileged, attorney-client privilege or anything, then they could object to handing that material over, or they could actually move to quash the subpoena if they feel they have sufficient evidence to quash the subpoena or modify the subpoena. So there are avenues they can take if they really did not want to hand the information over, this being the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. However, the main issue here is that the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, they're not going to go through a federal grand jury to get that subpoena and to get that subpoena issued. Why? Because they don't feel that the information is relevant, or they feel that they don't want the information to come out somehow. And I think the American people understand that they don't want the information to come out. That brings me to my next point. If you don't want the information to come out, why? What I've learned in life is there's a why behind everything. Everything has a why. Everyone has a motive. In college, I was a theater geek. Aside from being a college athlete, I was on a partial theater scholarship as well as a basketball scholarship, right? And so one of the first things they taught us in our acting classes was that every single actor has a motive. No matter what, everyone has their own particular motive, right? So I think these individuals are under a hive motive. And I probably just created that. But Donald Trump has a motive not to have these files released. He has a motive not to have any of this information from the Epstein files uncovered, so much so to where he redacted the names of perpetrators. Now, typically in these files, you redact the names of victims, the addresses of victims, the personal identifying information of victims, because you don't want the victims to be harassed and you don't want them to deal with the burdens of having everyone going through these files know who they are and try to make contact with them. They might try to get interviews for them. You don't want the victims to go through that. You want them to recover for any damages that from the harms that have been done to them. And then you want them to have peace knowing that justice has been served. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a couple of federal agencies, talking about the DOJ and the FBI, who aren't particularly interested in justice being served on behalf of these victims. And that's very troubling, right? So what can we say to this? Unless the Attorney General wants to actually issue that subpoena and the FBI then act on the subpoena and go after that information, it's not going to happen. And of course, like I said before, we know damn well Pam Bondi is not going to go through a federal grand jury to get that subpoena issued in order to get more of the relevant information that's being held by the Jeffrey Epstein estate. And that, my friends, is the truth, whether you like it or not. It's not a partisan issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It's a humanitarian issue. The victims need justice. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey.